house in the Quincy woods. When I was a child, my family's vacation home in Quincy, California felt like another world. A place where time moved slower, where the pine forest whispered fairy tales, and the night wasn't scary, but peaceful like a mother's embrace. It was a 2-acre plot covered in dense forest, separated from the small town a few miles away. That place was the shelter of my childhood summers, of afternoons picking mushrooms with Dad, and of nights spent sneaking out of bed just to hear the hoot of owls. But time waits for no one. As my siblings and I grew up, life pulled each of us in different directions. Family trips became sparse, and eventually, they nearly stopped altogether. That autumn, when I had just started dating Rose, a girl whose smile felt like October sunshine, I told her about the house in Quincy during a Thursday date. It was the time when the leaves began to change, creating golden, radiant paths. Rose loved the idea of a weekend getaway for just the two of us, and I couldn't hide my excitement. We left on a Friday morning, backpacks packed with snacks, a camera, a few books, and hope for a truly special trip. We talked the whole drive about movies, childhoods, family stories, even our greatest fears. Then we listened to a few comedy podcasts, laughing loud as the road twisted through the forest. When we reached Quincy, I drove around the charming little town to show Rose its beauty. The old wooden shops, the cinnamon-scented cafes, and the people with warm eyes. 10 minutes later, we turned onto the narrow road leading to my family's property. The familiar, simple wooden gate appeared, still unlocked, with just a faded private property sign worn by the weather. I pushed the gate open, the car rolling slowly over the blanket of fallen leaves. The house looked just like I remembered. The sloped wooden roof, the hot tub on the back porch, and the long deck facing the valley. My dad hired someone to do occasional landscaping, so the place was always tidy and clean. Rose was amazed. She said, "It's like something out of a movie." We went inside, unpacked, and I gave Rose a tour of each room, sharing the memories tied to every corner. Then I turned on the hot tub to get it ready for the evening, and we headed into town for lunch. We stopped by the restaurant I had gone to since I was a kid, the one with the best toasted sandwiches and butternut squash soup in town. Then strolled around, visiting the Plumas County Museum to see local artifacts. The sun began to dip behind the mountains as we returned. The sky had turned violet when we soaked in the hot tub. Steam rose into the mountain chill, making the air feel even more magical. Rose rested her head on my shoulder, but then a strange crunching noise broke the silence, like someone stepping on dry leaves. I looked around, my heart starting to race. "Could be a bear," I whispered. We jumped out of the hot tub, wrapped in towels, and ran into the house in seconds. I turned off every light inside and outside. Light could attract wildlife. When I looked out the window, expecting to see a bear, I instead saw a person. He was walking slowly along the side of the house. I rushed to the back door, locked it, and pulled the curtains. "Stay quiet," I told Rose, my voice dropping. The footsteps continued around the house, then stopped at the front door. Silence. Then came a knock, firm, deliberate. "Police," a man's voice shouted. I frowned. "What's going on?" I asked through the locked door. "We received a call about a break-in." "How? The nearest house is over 500 meters away." A strange pause. Then he replied, "I just need you to open the door, sir." I didn't believe him. I peeked through the curtain. Outside, there was still some light from the setting sun. No police car. No flashing red or blue lights. Nothing but trees. I turned to Rose. "I don't think he's really a cop." She nodded, her face pale. Another knock on the door. I called out, "I don't see a police car. I don't feel safe opening the door." No response. Then a long silence. Just when I thought he was gone, the heavy footsteps echoed again, moving away from the door. I looked through the window. No one in sight. He vanished into the woods like he was never there. But I knew he was still out there somewhere. That night, I ran out briefly to turn off the jets in the hot tub, then locked the door behind me and didn't step outside again. I took my dad's hunting rifle from the cabinet under the bed, loaded it, and kept it close. The two of us lay still, eyes wide open in the dark, listening to every sound from the forest. The next morning, we tried to act normal. We hiked in Plumas National Forest, had lunch at a bakery near the old movie theater, then watched a comedy film to soothe our nerves. But when we returned home, something strange happened again. As the car turned into the driveway, Rose screamed, "Oh my God!" I slammed the brakes, thinking an animal had run across. But she pointed at a figure running away from the house, fast as a gust of wind, straight into the woods. No time to see his face, no time to understand what was happening. I tried to stay calm. "It's okay, we have the gun. We'll leave tomorrow." But deep down, I knew I was terrified. We locked every door, checked every latch, packed our bags, and got ready to leave early. That night, lying in bed, a new sound emerged. Scrape, scrape, like metal being dragged across glass, rhythmic and chilling. I tiptoed to the window, peeked through the curtain, and came face to face with him. He was staring in. Only a pane of glass separated us. His face was cloaked in shadow, but his eyes, I saw them clearly, cold, soulless. I screamed. Rose bolted awake. I grabbed the gun, flung open the back door, ran into the freezing night, shouting and firing 3 shots into the air. The noise shattered the night silence, echoing through the woods. No reply, no footsteps, no voice. But I knew he heard me. That night, I didn't sleep. My eyes locked on the window, hand on the rifle's stock. The next morning, we left without a word. On the way home, I called the police and reported everything. After that night, my family returned to the house a few times. Everything was normal. No sign of a break-in, nothing missing. But I always felt like someone had been there, watching us from the shadows. And he's still out there, among the trees. The Man in Black on Langley Mountain Road. It was a cold autumn night, the sky devoid of moon and stars, with only streaks of mist draped across the Langley Mountain Range, the boundary between the vast wilderness and the quiet little towns of Oregon. I, Adrian Moore, was on my way home after a long work trip in the town of Rose Lake. My job is to cater weddings, and today's ceremony took place halfway up the mountain. The wedding ended later than expected, so by the time I descended, the clock read 1:17 a.m. I drove my old SUV through a small town called Elmridge, where almost no one was awake at that hour. I stopped at the only gas station still lit, a rundown place with a flickering sign that seemed on the verge of dying, to fill up the tank and grab some cookies and hot coffee. The cashier, a young woman, was dozing off behind the counter. She barely opened her eyes to greet me before nodding off again, as if she had never woken. The night was so quiet that the sound of opening a soda can echoed through the small room. A few minutes later, I got back in the car and continued the journey down the mountain, where Langley Mountain Road connects to the main highway that would lead me home. It was a winding stretch, eerily deserted. The towering pine trees on either side seemed to loom, casting long shadows across the mist-covered road. There were no other vehicles. Not a soul. Not a sound. I kept to the speed limit, 55 miles per hour, too tired to take any risks. The headlights sliced through the fog like blades, and the soft jazz playing from the radio only added to the unsettling atmosphere. I began to think I should stop at a roadside motel instead of pushing through to get home. Suddenly, a light flashed in the rearview mirror, startling me. Flashing lights, red and white, blinked behind my car. Reflexively, I checked the speedometer. Still at 55. I wasn't speeding, hadn't broken any laws. Yet the car behind kept flashing its lights and stayed close. I gently pulled over to the side of the road and stopped. The other car also stopped, just a few meters behind me. In that moment, something felt wrong. This wasn't like any traffic stop I'd ever seen on TV or in real life. The door of that car opened, and a man stepped out, tall, dressed entirely in black. A thick military-style coat, but with none of the usual insignia seen on police uniforms. No police label, no name badge, nothing but a faded silver emblem on his left chest. Only the words, Criminal Investigation Unit, Division 13. He approached my window. I rolled it down just slightly, enough to speak, keeping a safe distance. He spoke in a steady voice, not harsh, but with an air of authority, driver's license and vehicle registration. I frowned. "May I ask why I'm being stopped?" He was silent for a moment, then said, "I'll explain later. Your documents, please." I repeated that I wasn't speeding, my lights were fine, and I didn't feel comfortable handing over anything without a clear reason. My nerves were rising. Then I looked more closely. His lights were only red and white, no blue lights. Usually, highway patrol cars have all three. I asked directly, "Are you really a police officer?" "Secret Division," he replied, barely blinking. "Then let me see your badge number." No need. I'm not obligated to provide that. That answer made my stomach knot. Everything in me screamed, this is not a cop. While I was still hesitating, his tone suddenly changed, sharper, more forceful. Step out of the vehicle, now. I tried to stay calm, or at least act like it, and said, I don't feel safe stepping out unless you call your superior to this location. He started to get angry. He slammed his hand on my window, yelling, open the door. Open it now. I raised the window slightly. He reached for the door handle, trying to open it. My heart pounded. I pushed his hand away, started the engine, shifted to drive, and hit the gas. I heard him yell behind me, stop! I didn't stop. I drove with only one thought in mind, run. Whatever it takes, just run. The SUV roared into the night, tires crunching over fallen leaves scattered on the mountain road. I stayed within the speed limit. Didn't want an accident, but every passing second, I checked the rearview mirror. The flashing lights were still there. He was chasing me. I hit 911. A woman's voice came on, calm and professional. I spoke quickly, barely breathing. I'm being pulled over by someone pretending to be a cop. He won't show ID, no police car plates, no blue lights. He's chasing me on Langley Mountain Road. She asked for my location. I said I was heading south, about 15 minutes from Elm Ridge. She told me to keep driving to the Ridgepoint Police Department, the nearest town, and that an officer would be waiting in the parking lot. I did as told. The car behind still followed until we neared an intersection with a flickering yellow light. Suddenly, he turned off his lights and made a sharp right, disappearing, as if he had never been there. I didn't stop, didn't look back, didn't question it. I just drove straight to the Ridgepoint Police Station. When I arrived, a young officer was sitting in a patrol car, watching me through the mirror. He stepped out just as I parked. The look on his face told me they'd been expecting me. I recounted the whole story, every detail, from the man's face and his vehicle to the intersection where he vanished. The officer took down my statement, thorough and serious. He said this wasn't the first report of a fake cop pulling drivers over in the Langley Mountain area, but no one had ever given such a detailed account like mine.